Hey guys, what's up? I told you guys that, probably we're gonna have today off. Sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong, and luckily for me today I was right. So I hope you guys are enjoying some time at home. Take this time. Make sure you're safe out there though, especially if you go out. The roads are still gonna be slick. But just want to spend a couple of minutes to keep us rolling through. Remember, we have to get to a certain point by next Monday. So we want to kind of work toward that goal. So today we're just going to look at one slide or one major slide looking at what happens after World War One. We've looked at the U.S. entering the war, Russia leaving the war. We looked at the main causes and all this tragedy that occurs. But now we got to figure out how do we piece Europe back together. So that's what we're going to view today. Okay. So looking at the end of the war, if you haven't figured it by now, Germany surrenders. They have the armistice. Armistice Day, November 11th of 1918. And now they're kind of stuck with a situation that, yes, we win the armistice, or we won the war, Germany stops fighting, but now, how do we put Europe back together? How do we mend all these countries back? Because you have to remember, if you think about it as, one country has just experienced this huge tragedy at the hands of another country, public opinion's not going to view that country very highly. So if you're like the French or the British or the Russian people, you probably look at Germany as a really large, powerful, but evil country. Millions of people are going to lose their lives in this war. Millions and billions of dollars worth of property is going to be destroyed. So now, after the armistice is signed, the war is officially over. But now they have to meet and figure out just exactly what they want to see happen in Europe after the war. And so this becomes known as what's the Paris peace talks. And if you know where Paris is, it's in France. It was a meeting of what they called the Big Four. So these are going to be the Big Four allied countries. Britain, France, Italy, and the U.S. Now, before we get into this, me, I like to use examples for different things. And for this, I kind of sound like characters. For me, to better understand why they do what they do, I kind of sound like characters. So you have to imagine this big room, and these four groups or four people walk in. And they each have kind of like a personality. The first person who walks in is Britain, and Britain, kind of think of them as like a big bully. That's kind of what they're in for. The war's over. They experienced a lot of loss. They experienced a lot of tragedy, a lot of property. Remember, with unrestricted submarine warfare, a lot of their ships were sunk by German U-boats. So they come into this meeting with one goal in mind: we're going to punish the Germans. We don't want them to get strong again. We don't want them to ever get to that level of power again. We want to utterly destroy the Germans. They want to protect what they already had, which are their colonies. But they were really big on harsh punishment for Germany. And once again, Britain is a major country, one of the major allies. Now, unfortunately for the German government, it's not only Britain that walks in with this personality. Another group walks in, and it's kind of like a partner in crime, and that's going to be the French. The French also have this intense feeling of we need to punish Germany. And unlike Britain, France probably has a little bit more hatred or a lot more aggression, a lot more frustration built up against the Germans because they were invaded by Germany. Germany came into their country. Germany destroyed towns and railroads and factories. Civilians were lost in France. So the French, if you think Britain had this kind of grudge against the Germans, the French probably had a little bit more intense feeling. So Great Britain and France kind of walk into this building or into this room as like the bullies. They're there, they're ready to pound Germany. There's not going to be any mercy for them. They want to protect what they have. And they want harsh punishment for Germany. So these are the two bullies that walk in. Now the third person that walks in is not even actually a person. I kind of assign him like a dog character. They're really excited. Whenever Callie sees a Cheerio, her tail starts wagging, starts jumping, she starts kind of barking around. That's what Italy is. Italy's like this small, excited little dog. And finally, we won. We get land. This is awesome. Look. What am I going to get? Who's going to give it to me? So Italy comes in with this really big, excited momentum because they won the war. And remember, imperialism kind of dictated that if you win the war, you get land. And that's exactly what Italy was wanting. So they were hoping to gain all this land, so they're super excited about this. So now in the room we have the two bullies and this little excited, happy dog. The next group, or next person that walks in, kind of a style is like if you could stereotype hippies, peace, love, harmony, That's going to be the U.S. And they have a very, very different take or a very different outlook of what Europe needs to be. They wanted fair treatment for Germany. Yes, they still thought the Germans were the main cause, that they were the major power of the Central Powers, and that yes, there needed to be some punishment. But from the U.S. perspective, they also saw it as well. You were fighting them too. It's not just Germany fighting you; you were also fighting them. So automatically, that right there is probably going to make Britain and France a little upset with the U.S. The second big thing: self-determination of colonized lands. That means that the U.S. went into this with this idea of that if you had a colony, you should let them choose their own government. Like, you should let them choose their own government. Now, obviously, if you looked at the other three, Italy definitely upset with that idea because that's all they wanted. Finally, we're going to get land. We're going to get colonies. And Great Britain and France that had colonies, here's the U.S. saying, look, we got to drop that. We got to give them their freedom because that's causing more drama. It's causing more issues. And then the last one, and if you remember us talking about it, Woodrow Wilson's 14-point speech, the 14th point called for a group of countries that could sit down and to discuss issues. That's going to become the League of Nations. All right, so the big four are going to meet. Now, if you could look at just these major four countries, Britain and France already kind of have the advantage with numbers. They're already kind of like half the battle because they have similar interests. And all they have to do is get Italy to kind of jump on board. And if you look at Italy in the U.S., Italy would be more aligned with Britain and France than the U.S. because the U.S. has no more colonies. We need to give them self-determination, give them freedom. So Italy is kind of like more so on the French and British side. So the U.S. walks into the Paris peace talks kind of at a disadvantage. But you also have to remember, too, we don't enter in until relatively late. So Britain and France that have been doing all this fighting are kind of seeing the U.S. like, hey, you came in late. You don't have as many losses. You don't have as much invested in this war as we do. So the U.S. in the Paris peace talks kind of gets pushed to the side. But from the Paris peace talks, we get the Treaty of Versailles. We're going to get the Treaty of Versailles. And tomorrow we're going to look at the Treaty of Versailles more in depth and kind of the different pieces of it. But you're going to see when we talk about the Treaty of Versailles that Britain and France really get their way with the big four. Now, if you haven't finished it, I'm sorry, you can go back if you wish. Now, the last thing we're going to do today is we're going to look at this handout. It's called The End of the First World War. It really breaks down. On the far right-hand side, you're going to see the actual losses of life. On the bottom right, you're going to see a pie chart looking at the different losses, kind of gives you a different visual. What's really important, though, is if you look at the middle and all those little, graphic little zigzag line circle things, it looks at actual consequences. So things that are impacted because of this war. So on the side here, you have these three questions. And what I want you to do is kind of create just a blank doc, and you're going to just type these questions out for me. And when you do that, you're going to use this handout, which will also be posted in Classroom. And you're going to use that to answer these three questions, okay? Obviously, I can't come around and answer your questions. Just try your best, and we'll talk about this tomorrow. And once again, if you have any questions about what we've talked about today, because I know we went through this relatively quick, if you have any questions, by all means, just kind of type them somewhere and have them for tomorrow, because tomorrow we're not going to go in depth with it. I'm just going to ask if you had any questions about it, and then we're going to move forward with the Treaty of Versailles. All right? Thanks, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.